Hello, everybody, and welcome to Taking Control, the ADHD podcast on rashpixel.fm. I'm Pete Wright, and right over there is Nikki Kinzer.
I saved myself from having a bunch of coffee spilled on me.
Do you know, I feel like I heard something, some sort of a crash, and I was worried that maybe the computer had fallen off the desk.
No. But the coffee almost fell all over the keyboard. But it didn't.
I'm so glad that kind of thing paralyzes me.
I know.
It totally paralyzes me. I am in great fear.
I might have, if it had, I probably would have said a curse word, and then all of a sudden we would not be family friendly anymore.
That's right.
But I'm doing good.
You are? You're feeling okay? You feeling in control?
A little.
That's good. Okay, we're going to talk about things in a minute. We've got a number of questions and bits of follow-up that have crept in. This was originally an episode. Frankly, we were originally going to be talking about tackling the inbox today. We have postponed that because we had a number of questions and frankly, a lot of questions about writing. Yeah, the novel writing thing. And as we record this today, it is December 1st. National Novel Writing Month is over. It ended last night, and so we're going to talk a little bit about writing a novel in a month and doing it with ADHD and the tools and tricks and tips that at least I've culled and made use of this year. We got some other questions from folks that we're going to take on before we get into that. Make sure you head over to takecontroladhd.com and get to know us a little bit better. You know the drill. You can listen to the show right there on the website or subscribe to the mailing list. I recommend you subscribe to the mailing list right there on the homepage, and you'll get an email with the latest episode each week in Nikki's fantastic newsletter. You can find us on Twitter or Facebook at Take Control ADHD, or call us at 503-664-4ADD to get your voice and questions on this show. Thank you so much. Also, don't forget, we're over on patreon.com/the ADHD Podcast. This is listener-supported podcasting. For those of you who have found it in your hearts and wallets to give us $1 or $2 or $5 a month to help support this show, we are actively working to grow the show thanks to your support. So thank you so much for paying it forward and helping us do even more with the ADHD Podcast. Patreon.com/the ADHD Podcast.
Can I just say something really fast?
I don't know. I'll start the timer. Okay.
On Thanksgiving, I opened up my email and I saw that somebody had pledged on Thanksgiving, and I thought that was really sweet. So thank you.
I do. It's a Patreon. I do. I love it. I love what it stands for. I have to tell you, just personally, I pledge to a number of projects on Patreon, and it just does my heart good. I get that email every month that says, "Hey, thanks for supporting creators," and I am warm inside that I feel like I have done that. So, I hope those who support us or find an equal amount of warmth and goodwill when they get that email.
Certainly appreciate it.
Sure hope we live up to it.
I opened the email and I smiled. I was like, "Aw, even on really Thanksgiving, nice. That's so nice."
I know.
That's right.
Okay, so Nikki, can we start with working on developing presentations?
Jeez.
Sorry, I don't mean to start laughing at that, but you are deep in developing a presentation for a
wonderful
webinar, right?
Organization. Yes, for ADA.
Yes, and for ADA, we say this meaning no ill will toward ADA.
Absolutely not. This is not their fault.
Presentation development is the energy black hole. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. It's one of those things that this project has taken me so much longer than I expected. I know there's many people out there who relate to this. And it's frustrating, because I was asked to do the presentation quite a long time ago. I mean, and this is what I'm saying. This is not Ada's fault. This is definitely my fault for waiting too long to put it together. And it's a presentation that I've never done before. So I had to start from scratch, which, is like you writing a novel, not the same depth by any means, but you are staring at a piece of paper and trying to, figure out what you're going to say to the world.
Yeah.
And so anyway, long story short, it's just been a very taxing couple weeks, and I have to have a couple of deadlines for you because you're helping me with the presentation itself, the slideshow, and I have my designer who's helping me with the handout, and I got to make sure to get these into you guys so that that's ready for next week when I do the presentation. So with that being said, I did start with an idea and I completely changed my mind because I was sitting on it. In fact, I texted you and I said, well, here's the title. Here are the things I'm going to talk about. And I actually changed it completely from when I talked to you last because I just wasn't happy with it. And I think that people are going to understand this too. It's like I was reading through it and I'm thinking this just isn't right. It's not flowing. It's just not working. And then, next day I started looking at it again and then all of a sudden it just started happening. So I'm actually at a point where, yes, this is stressful. I'm spending a lot of hours, last minute trying to get it together, but I am really proud of the product.
That's so good.
And that I'm really good. It's about goal setting. It's about how to, set effective goals when you have ADHD. It is for ADA. And, so if you are a member of ADA, you probably have already gotten the email, that I'm going to be presenting next week. If you're not a member of ADA, I, highly suggest that you become one. And if you are on my newsletter, you'll get a 10% discount to join. And I'm going to be sending out a notice here to my newsletter people, letting them know about the presentation and letting them know about that discount. So I would love, if you're listening to this and you're listening to it in kind of real time, I'm presenting on Wednesday, December, whatever that is, 6th, I think. I'd love to have you on there because, I have put a lot of blood and sweat and tears in this thing.
Yes.
But I am proud of it. And I think it's inspiring, and has some really good information. So yes, I'm doing okay. I'm hanging in there. But it's just been a busy,
practicing
crazy
good
week.
self-care.
No.
Nikki,
not really.
Of all people.
I know, but I did stretch before I got on this call here with you.
I wanted to tell you I was proud of you because you texted me. You said, I'm getting coffee and stretching before we do the show. That's really good.
Yes, because I've been on the computer, since early in the morning because I've had to get up early to work on this. And so I'd been sitting for probably 2.5 hours straight. And I thought, man, before I let my, voice be heard in the world, I need to get some energy. And I'm on I'm standing up with my little makeshift desk and
excellent.
And, it's all good.
The world is looking out for you, Nikki Kinzer. Thank you for contributing to it.
Thank you.
Well, we probably should have done your segment there after we did this follow-up because I have more questions for you related to my topic. But let's jump back a little bit and start with a question that came in from Desiree.
Yes.
Desiree asked us that I'm realizing there are certain types of jobs that are just not compatible with my ADHD inattentive type anymore. Is there a way to find out what types of jobs are more fit for people with inattentive type? Thank you.
Yeah.
What do you think?
So I'll share with you my answer to her because I actually already emailed her with my answer, but I did say that I was going to bring it up on the show because I wanted to hear your point of view. And I think that whenever a question comes in, you always know that more than one person has that question, right? If it's actually being asked, I'm sure that there's probably several other people who are wondering the same thing. So I definitely wanted to share it. And, one of the things that the first thing I said here is the good news is that she's actually able to now eliminate what's not working for her. And I think that sometimes we forget that is that we're always looking for, okay, what should I be doing? What do I want to do? But, one of the ways to make that choice is to remember what doesn't work. So you can just sort of have those things kind of get out of your head. Don't even look in the newspaper, not in the newspaper. I am so old school. Don't get onto the computer on the monster.com. I don't even know if that still exists. Gosh, I am really showing my age.
Wow. Did you? Are you on the Lycos? Did you do a Lycos search?
I don't even know what that is.
I went before you. Oh my goodness. I need to dial into AOL and send you
AOL, yes.
I'm going to IM you in AOL.
You got mail. Yes. Okay. So anyway, going back to her question. the next thing that I said is let's do, one of the things I would suggest is having her do an inventory of her strengths and looking at what she's passionate about and how could that apply to different jobs. So I think that's also a really important thing to think about is what am I good at? What do I want to do? And reflect on what she's passionate about. Because really, if you're inattentive or not, that part doesn't matter as much as you're always going to enjoy and get more out of your job if you really like what you're doing. And I think that's the key. And so that's what I shared with her is, look at what you don't want, look at your strengths and think about what your passions are and what kind of job opportunities that might hold for you. What are your thoughts?
Well, I actually did a poll of a couple of my ADHD friends and colleagues.
Awesome.
Yes, and I have one in particular who is a case study for this. He is amazing and he's done everything and he's loved every bit of it. And so he gave me like 7 different jobs that he has worked on or that he has done in his career and shared them with such joy and like warmth that I have to pass them on because they seem to really check all the boxes. The first one is mine, and I've talked about it on the show, and that is in journalism. I consider going into journalism or copy editing or broadcasting because there's definitely a career there, and you will never sit still. It is absolutely designed for you to explore the inattentive traits. So I really like that one. But then starts my buddy. And he says, first and foremost, daycare or childcare or teaching, right? Going into young kids' education was perfect for his ADHD because most kids are just a little bottle of ADHD and you're constantly changing gears. You're constantly on your feet. And by the end of the day, you are emotionally and physically exhausted and from running around and taking care of these beautiful little people. And that was just a perfect job for ADHD. So that's number one. Number two, work in a restaurant, particularly become a cook, a chef, a line cook. That is another job that you just you work up into the more sort of specialty restaurants, and you'll never sit still. And if you love food, that's a great way. He swears by food.
Mm-hmm.
The emergency and first response. He's a volunteer firefighter.
That makes sense.
And so going into nursing or some sort of emergency first responder, 911 operator. These are great careers for people who constantly change gears and can't sit still. And finally, and this is where he is right now. He finally found the career for him, and that is as a hairstylist. And he went to, I guess it's still called beauty school. I don't know, but he became very, very popular. He dyed his hair pink and grew out a giant fluffy red beard. And just this last month, opened his own studio after working in another studio for many years. And now he has his own place. And he is like the I don't know what you got. Like he's just like the Godfather in his own place. He's this big guy and he just runs the place and is charismatic and warm and beautiful and always on his feet. And it's just great. So he suggested those specific careers were perfect for his ADHD and still perfect for his ADHD today. If any of those latch on to you, Desiree, I hope you'll consider.
That's great. One. I love that you have like specific jobs. That's really cool. Yeah. That's great.
I feel like I've never made the list, and we've gotten that question before. And so it was great to reach out to some folks and hear, in this case, particularly someone who absolutely has embraced the ADHD and made it a part of the career.
That's awesome. Yes, absolutely. So. That's great.
Well, okay, so there's number one.
Actually, before you move on to the next one, I did have an email come through just like yesterday. I mean, it was really recent. I haven't had a chance to get back to her, but she was, the question was, I think I have ADHD, but I'm not sure. And I don't know what to say to my doctor. And I don't know what to do. Any advice kind of along those kind of lines. And I just want to say quickly, because I think that, again, when this comes to our attention, it's probably a lot of people are maybe listening to us thinking that maybe they have it, but they're not sure. And we've said this before, but I just want to say it again. If you are curious, or you think that this, may be an explanation of some of the ways that you think, go to your doctor first. You can just go to your regular general practitioner first and let them know what you're experiencing, why you're thinking that this might be it. And they'll take you down the road that they need to get you proper testing and all of that. So it is a little bit of a process and a journey, but I definitely think it's worth it. And, chances are you have probably a pretty likelihood of chance of having it if you really think that you do, right? I mean,
yeah, right.
So I encourage you, if you're listening, to do that, but I will also send an email to you personally as well. So
excellent. All right. So that was number, I don't know. We're still on number 1. Number 2, we got a note from Ashley. I came across this guide for healthier digital habits and thought you might like it. It is a resource from homescreenzero.com called Counterprogramming, a brain retraining guide for heavy internet users. Ashley says it puts into words a lot of the things I think people with ADHD struggle with when it comes to technology. Hope all is well. Thank you very much, Ashley. We'll put those in the show notes.
Yes.
All right. And then we have the
I
post
love
from
this name.
on Twitter from Julia at Julia Likes Frogs.
I like frogs too, Julia.
Oh man, it makes me want to change my Twitter handle.
I know. We had frogs for a while.
Frogs.
We had little pet frogs. Yeah, that's awesome.
It's so good. Well, Julia Likes Frogs wrote to us and says, at Pete Wright, yay. Also doing a novel for NaNoWriMo 2017, and can't wait to hear about how you handle keeping plot and character and everything in your head. More about ADHD and novel writing, please. Hashtag ADHD, hashtag editing at Take Control ADHD. Thank you so much for writing that, Julia, and congratulations. I hope you were able to finish. I don't know. Did you respond? I think I wanted to know if you finished, and I don't think we heard. So I hope you were able to finish today, as it is the first. This means the nano goal of writing a 50,000-word novel in the month of November is over. To anyone who participated in it, I hope you hit your 50,000 and shot well beyond it. For those who didn't, I hope you are not sitting in shame. That's not what it's about. Because it's a great exercise. It's a great exercise for your brain, for commitment and habit building. And whether or not you did it, as I said before, I've been doing this for 14 years in some way, shape, or another, and I've only completed it now, I think 4 times. And so,
congratulations!
Yes, yeah, I did it this year. I guess I buried the lead. I did it. I made it. I'm still actively writing, and that is a very exciting thing.
It is. I am so proud of you, Pete Wright.
Thank you. It was, it's hard. It's always hard, but it was easier this year as a result, I think, of a few of the things I want to talk about. And I should say, I've got 4 now, 3 and an unfinished, I should say 2 and an unfinished novels, that are, that I've never published. They're just sitting there because I've never, I've had in the past such a difficult time making it to the next stage. That's not a problem I'm having right now. I think, experience does what it does, and I'm feeling more confident and stronger and better about the story this year. And so I feel like I'm on the right track to have this thing published and in, Kindle and iBook stores. I'm by end of first quarter next year. And that's my goal. That's my target. And I'm going to keep working at that. And so I thought we would just, in a matter of response to Julia Likes Frogs, talk a little bit about
not only her,
project.
But I have a client too who's very interested in your story. So there's a lot of writers out there.
I got a number of posts on Facebook and emails, from the site of people asking for more talk about novel writing and ADHD and just novel writing in general. And, I would love to say that I am a successful published author. I'm not, and I don't know that that's where I'm going, but I do love to write. I love to write my own stuff. I love to ghostwrite for other people. I've got a couple of books that are in the various bookstores that are not under my name. And so this is fun to do something fiction that is under my name potentially. And so I look forward to kind of building that library. But
can I just say something?
Yeah.
You have written so much of my material, and anytime I get stuck, I always ask, Pete, I just say, this is what I want to say, and can you make it better? And you do have a way with words, and there are certain times I won't, that I could point out, but I'm not going to, because there's so many of them. You'll say something, and I'm just like, oh wow.
Oh,
it's just so
Nikki.
good. So you're a very, very good writer, and I can't wait to read what you have. So I think it's very exciting, and this is good. Good for you.
Well, I deeply appreciate that, Nikki. I really do. And like I said, I mean, I love to do it, but it has been so hard to kind of embrace the things that made it such a challenge in the past. I never really realized that that's okay. It's okay to embrace the ADHD challenges and not just sit there and fight with them. And that's what
Amen.
I've done years past. And so in large part, thanks to this show and the habit of talking about these challenges, has it become easier to sit down and actually get it done. And so I'm really excited about that. The other thing is, you do it a number of times now that I've got, going into this, had a couple under my belt. 50,000 words is, it starts to not feel that big. And, the first year I did it, 50,000 words was a disaster.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly it's just not a disaster anymore. And now, the goal of the book that I'm writing now is roughly 85,000. Like that's kind of where I'm sitting right now. Like where that's where I feel like the story will naturally kind of, resolve itself. So I'm excited about it. I'm excited about the way kind of your brain adjusts to scale and adapts to the sense of scale. It's no longer doom. It is now something that's achievable, just the act of doing it a few times. And so embrace that. The first thing that struck me when I thought, how do I want to talk about this is to talk about the commitment, right? The commitment that comes with taking on a project like this. And this is not just about writing a novel. It's about taking on anything, any big creative project that you feel like it's going to take you, longer than a few days to complete, right? You have to be aware of the time. You have to be aware of the fact that you're going to need to build a habit or a system in your day, every day, to do this. You're going to have to be aware of the environment that you set up for yourself, and you're going to have to find a way to become accountable to consistency, accountable to doing it every day, whether it's at the same time every day or just an alarm that says, do this at random because that's the way it works. Like today, I'm going to do it at 2. Yesterday, I did it at 8. Tomorrow, I'm going to do it at midnight, right? But you have to do it every day. And those are the things that sort of come to, that are really hard when you're kind of fighting your brain, either inattentive or, hyperactive. You either can't sit still or you can't pay attention long enough. Your brain can't sit still long enough to actually get this thing done. And so that's really hard to do. And it's okay for it to be hard. And so here's kind of how I approached it in terms of the process. First, I just wrote, and I wrote what we call either exploratory or sort of discovery writing, which is just to sit down and start something. I had no plan. I had no idea for a character. I knew I wanted to write a protagonist that was a female. I wanted to write it with a target for my, target audience was my, middle teenage daughter, middle teenaged. I only have one daughter, and she's in the middle of her teens.
Yes,
she was my target audience, and so I knew I wanted to write something that was young adult as sort of a gift for her. Right, that's all I knew about the process, and I knew what I wanted to do. And it was a funny thing. I wrote probably the first 1,500 words in a bit of a sprint. And it was a story of a young girl it starts with her head on her father's lap, lying in a park, and she's dreaming of flying. And so I write this passage, and I named her Alia. And Alia, as it turns out, and I found this out later, in Persian means wind. Oh. And I thought that was a really sweet little bit of kismet,
Wow.
like it's a connection to this character that I didn't see coming. It was totally unplanned. It's just a sound that I thought was really beautiful. And so, so she became one of the sort of lead protagonists in the book. And then it just sort of starts to flow. So my goal was to write 2,000 words a day. And at, 250 words per page is about 8 pages a day. But I didn't focus on pages. I focused strictly on words because, it's the era of ebooks. and ebooks change depending on, the size of,
Yeah.
size of the page. And so I really was focused on just hitting that 2,000 word target. If I could blow past it on a given day, that'd be great. But at 2,000 words a day, if I missed that several days running, 1,667 words is the minimum each day to be able to meet 50,000 words by the end of the month. So I figured if I shoot for 2,000 and then only hit 1,667 on a given day, I'm still okay. So I really kind of tried to train my brain to do that. But then I ran into this wall, which is it was really hard to find the time to sit long enough to write 2,000 words a day. It was,
well, I was going to ask
paralyzing.
you, I mean, I'm sure it varied on day to day, but I mean, like how, on average, how much time were you putting into it? I mean, that's
2 to 2.5 hours.
Yeah,
and so
that's a
I
long
was
time.
roughly, I was about 1,000 words an hour was my pace. And it got much faster toward the end, but it was really slow in the beginning. And so I had to, I knew it was, and I know writing a novel is hard for everybody, but I knew the ADHD was making it much more difficult to sit still.
Sure.
And so I read this article, just recently about romance novelists, right? Romance novelists are a special breed of hustler. I mean, those people are amazing. I am, whatever you think of the work, and I'm not a frequent reader of romance novels, but my goodness, Nikki, I mean, those people turn out like this article says, averaging 2,500 words an hour every single day, publishing, 15 to 20 books a year. It's just a stunning accomplishment to turn out that kind of storytelling with that frequency. And so I aspire to be that prolific and to be able to focus that long in those kinds of sprints. That's a special kind of gift and mental acuity that I struggle with. So I went ahead and I embraced the wonkiness of my schedule and the wonkiness of my attention. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to stop trying to accomplish, 2,000 word 2-hour sprints on a given day. And instead, I'm going to focus on how much can I write in 15 minutes in between meetings? How much can I write in, a half hour here, an hour there, and write multiple times throughout the day. And writing became, over the course of the month, it became a real sort of gift of my day. I found myself really looking forward to writing breaks because they were giving me a break from work. They were giving me a break from phone calls and emails. And I made sure I shut the door. I, turned the lights just right. I absolutely had my headphones. I have these the Beats wireless headphones that I put on, and sometimes I didn't play anything through them, but other times I would always play. And I'll put links to this to the Apple Music Pure Focus playlist. It's a 7-hour playlist of all music that doesn't have lyrics, and it's all like it goes from like super lilting and beautiful to super kind of dramatic, and it's like the perfect writing score. I found the writing pace matches if you could actually read the book with the Apple Music Pure Focus playlist and you'll feel it like it'll the energy and pace matches the playlist. It's really cool. And Apple changes it every week. And so there's constantly new stuff in it, but 7 hours long, you never run out of material. And the other is Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. They write the scores to movies like The Social Network and After the Flood and Gone Girl. And, anyway, it's great music. And so I definitely recommend that kind of music is perfect for writing. And so I did that. And I just sort of shut out the world and then do a sprint. And a sprint is just, here's the timer, turning it on. How many words can I hit? Next time I do it, can I hit one more word than that? Just one. If it stops me in the middle of a sentence, I stop in the middle of a sentence. And so that's how I just sort of churn out words, right? And that was the first step. And I think a lot of people, and me in the past too, would really struggle with this idea of editing in process. And I think that might work for some people. But you write a paragraph and then you stop and read it and think about it and try to make notes and connections. And I did not do that at all this time. I just wrote the story that felt like whatever came next, and the editing starts only after that first draft is done, and to make sure that I, go back and essentially rewrite the book, and accounting now for plot holes and character holes and story holes and timing holes. Are lots of, I know that, one of the challenges that I had was, one of my major mentor characters, who knows how old he is at this point, because I have changed his story multiple times throughout the narrative, right?
Mm-hmm.
He starts out, he's 30, but suddenly I've put him in a
90.
place where he has a flashback that was 20 years ago. And so now he's got to be closer to 50, and so it's those kinds of things I really feel like got in my way before. They really stopped me from getting the words on the page. And so I feel like I treated this more like a dream. Embrace short chapters. Like I really focused on short chapters, and only after that first sort of churning draft did I go back and merge chapters together and try to kind of play with the story and massage the story into place a little bit like that. So I embrace short chapters, short writing sessions, and fight self-editing in the process. And that's what helped me kind of get the words on the page. Mm-hmm. Now, I also, I love field notes. And so I keep my little field notes journal right by the computer or right by the iPad, depending on where I'm writing. And if there are notes about character name spellings, anything like that, I always just write it by hand in the field notes. And I flip through the pages to kind of catch myself up on, potential plot errors that I can take care of while I'm writing, and that was very helpful. They're just sketches, hardly readable. But that is, specifically to Julia's question, how do you keep plot, character, everything in your head, right? I make little bullet notes in my field notes notebook to keep me going. But I also, largely try not to keep too much in my head at once, like really focusing on the scene I'm writing right now. And I'll fill in the blanks, fill in any holes, correct it all later. I imagine, I'll end up writing 100,000 words and, knock it down to 65 by the time the thing is completely finished. Who knows? And finally, the fear, there's just a lot of fear every time I sit down and write. It's there's this paralyzing sense of what if, I've never shared a long form fiction piece with anyone else, and what if it's a bunch of crap? Mm-hmm. What if it is just paving the road to Simpleville? What if it's terrible? I don't know. And so that's probably the thing to fight more than any of this other stuff, is just getting over the fact that it's terrifying to apply pen to page, metaphorically speaking. Luckily, in this case,
I was just going to say, and that's where all of the courage comes in too. I think when you're ready to press send to have it published, it is a very courageous thing to do, to get past that fear, and be able to embrace whatever the outcome is, because we don't know what it's going to be. My guess is it's going to be great. But yeah, I think that fear is very legitimate for a lot of creators, for a lot of artists too. I hear that sometimes. I worked with a painter for a while, and I remember he had such a hard time deciding when a picture was actually finished.
Oh yeah,
because it never felt finished.
Yeah, right.
But kudos to you, because you're 80% there.
Yeah, it feels like it.
Yeah.
And one of the things we talk about all the time, an accountability partner, and in writing a novel, it's not the kind of I was never comfortable sitting with somebody like next to me.
Right.
It's a terribly isolating kind of an event. Even if I go to a different environment fairly often, I go to Starbucks, I go over to Insomnia, I'd go to different coffee shops and write for a few hours here and there, but generally it's a thing that you do alone in your own head. And but I still think the role of an accountability partner, I can't underscore how important it is, in this case, because Sophie, my daughter, was my kind of avatar audience member. After I got through about the first 6 chapters, I mentioned in another podcast, I was writing in Ulysses, the writing app for the Mac and iOS, and it makes it super easy to just say, hey, take these chapters and export them as an EPUB and attach it to an email and send it. Mm-hmm. And in fact, as an aside, one of the suggestions that NaNoWriMo sent, and they send their little encouraging emails every couple of days, and one of them said, "Hey, if you're struggling, take a break, go into your, photo editing app and create a title page or a cover page for your book. So I did that. I went over to Unsplash and I found a beautiful image that totally represents my my book and my character. And I created a title page with my name on it and the title of the book on it. And I attached that to the EPUB. So now I send that to my daughter and she opens it in email. It opens right up into iBooks and she starts reading it. And she just went berserk. She loved it. She absolutely loved it.
Well, and that has to be such a cool thing too, to actually see it as a book.
Yeah.
Right?
It's amazing.
Yeah, that's
amazing.
That's neat.
That was a huge bit of kind of a huge dose of empowerment, of just being able to stop and reflect on this thing that you have the power to create from vapor, this thing that people can read and enjoy. And so she became, like, every couple of chapters, I just export a new copy of the book and she would bust through the, first part for any edits and then just really read closely. It was to the point where she would come into my room, in the pitch dark at night, we're sound asleep, and she would tap my shoulder and say, "I need to talk to you about your book. I just finished the latest version." I said, "It's like midnight." She said, "I know, but I found 2 typos and I really love it. So where's the next chapter?" Right? It was really delightful. And so
That's fantastic.
That part I found really motivating. And that helps me, that accountability partner piece, like having that avatar, that person who can actually stop and say, "Hey, I know you clearly have fallen in love with this character, but in chapter 3, your main character was still this person, and now you have changed, and I missed that other person. Please come back to that." Like, that helps me kind of find balance in the narrative. And so in this long form project, having somebody who can sit and talk to me about what was important to them, really helps me refine what's important to me and how am I going to frame the story. Am I still telling the story that I intended to tell?
Well, and you bring up a good point, because just about editing in general, that's why we have editors to look at the story after the fact. Like, I know you're editing and filling in the gaps, but at some point you're going to have an editor read it, I'm sure.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's like, that's what they see, because you're so close to it, that they'll also be able to tell you, like, okay, well, this person was actually really interesting and they left. Like, where can they come back in? And there's just that whole process is so intriguing. And I think it's awesome that your daughter has already picked up on it. At 15 too.
Yeah.
She might have a little talent. You might have a little writer in her too.
Well, I, don't tell her that, because she was doing this little exercise the other night where they have to write this sort of a, I can't even remember what the assignment was, but she had to fill in these blanks. Like, I dream, I worry, it's a literary exercise in her fiction class. And one of the prompts was, I cry. And she filled in the blank, "I cry when I think about writing." So,
okay, maybe
she's definitely, she is an exceptional little scientist. You talked to her about chemistry and physics
and she's all over
geology.
That.
She's about to go to Iceland and do this geology trip. And so, yeah, that's where she is. Writing it all down, that becomes a different issue altogether.
Well, I think it's great. Thank you so much for sharing your story, and keep us updated, because this obviously struck a chord for a lot of people, because there was definitely more than 1 or 2 people that asked questions about it and wanted to hear more. Yeah. And I think what's great too is that you can listen to what Pete is saying and be able to transfer that into any kind of project that you're working on. It doesn't have to be writing a novel. Just the way you talked about your environment and breaking it down and accepting, your wonkiness. I love that word. There's just so many great pieces to this, and congratulations. I'm so proud of you, and you got a lot of support behind you.
That means a great deal. And thanks for patience, everybody. I know I've been slow to respond to emails and prompts and things.
You've been writing
and tweets, but my head's been down a little bit. The nice thing about it is, I speaking of that accountability part, not just my daughter who reads the thing, but my wife and the whole family, who is, when I say, "Hey, I'm going to leave the house and go write," their first step is, "Hey, can you change the laundry or fold the laundry first?" Or, "Hey, while you're out, can you do something else?" They always say, "Good luck, head down, don't think about anything else." right? They just embrace the fact that they know how hard it is.
Yeah.
And being able to create that space has been a real gift. And I know that's not something that everybody has the benefit of. And so I'm, I don't mean to say that as if, just find a supportive family,
right?
Because I know it's hard, and I feel really deeply lucky that I had such a supportive family and client base to be patient with me.
Yes. But with that being said too, I think that there are a lot of ways to get that support. So maybe if it's not from your immediate family, there's so many, like I have one client who's a novelist, and she has a writing group that she meets with every Wednesday, and they're not family. I mean, they're just all in the same boat trying to write. And I have another client. I think a lot of this writing, I think might be a good profession, going back to the very first question that we had, because I have another client who's a writer, and her accountability is she takes classes at the local community college almost every term. She has a writing class that she takes, and writes different stories, and like that. I mean, right there, that's her with her people writing, and they love it, and they critique each other. And I mean, so there's a lot of different ways, I think, to find that.
Thank you, everybody. I will, hopefully the next time we talk about novel writing will be when it's published, and we can talk about that process.
But next week, are we going to talk about email?
Yeah, I think let's jump into email. Some things have changed about email, and so we'll talk a little bit about email and apps and learning and artificial intelligence and all kinds of fun stuff that's going on with your email behind the scenes. And maybe we'll hopefully make you a smarter email user.
That would be great. So that will be next week. And then the week after is going to be our last show for the year. For 2017. So we have 2 more new shows coming up, and then we'll be back in January. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but just wanted to give people the heads up that we're going to be taking a little bit of time off around the holidays.
Sounds great. Thanks, Nikki. On behalf of Nikki Kinzer, I'm Pete Wright, and we'll catch you next week right here on Taking Control, the ADHD Podcast.